The person I most like to be analytical and self-deprecating with is my sister. She can take it. She tells me to reframe. Everyone could benefit from a conversation with her. She's who I go to when I need to dissect the hard topics that I wake up obsessing about. I'll ask tons of questions and she'll sister us through via text or wine or coffee. All useful vices, since the Davy sisters are a strong cup of coffee. So come here if you can relate or need some sistering yourself. There'll be lots of laughter and a whole lot of reframing as we work our way through some of life's big and small stuff together. Hey, Nat.
Hey, Bec.
What were we just saying?
We were sort of checking in on what we're going to do about those bugs that are laying eggs on your lovely white chairs out there in the field.
And then you said, life finds a way.
Yeah, it was like a really deep line from Jurassic Park.
Actually,
that I actually think is really good.
It is a really good line, and it's
why it stands
it's remarkably
up.
true.
Absolutely.
Like it's like weird larvae or larvae. I
know. I'm staring at them right now, and I'm thinking, I thought that what they were sitting on was like glue as a part of the chair, but now you're telling me that's actually like from them.
That's just the collection of eggs, yeah.
From their
and how
insides.
They pool. And then we've discovered some excellent nature at the farm this weekend. A massive caterpillar on a grapevine that was
like the size of my whole, like two of
arm.
my thumbs. Yeah,
your
like
arm.
My arm.
And then I confess, I snipped it
into 3.
Because I have learned from my fellow farmers that that's a strategy you use with caterpillars. You have to get rid of them, like just full on.
You can't just toss it off.
Cut them off. Well,
because then it'll just do damage somewhere else.
I think you probably could, but yeah, maybe they would crawl back. I don't know. I think we're trying to eliminate that population.
No, I'm into that. I think there's something nice about cutting something off.
And there is like an invasive caterpillar in Ontario, apparently. Well, that's a shout out to my sister-in-law, who's an environmentalist. She knows these things. So I thought it was that caterpillar.
Thanks, Em.
Also, I wanted to tell you that I invited Mom to be on the podcast.
Okay.
And she it was a firm no.
Like, truly? Firm no? Not even like a...
She was like, no way. No way.
No way.
Although I was talking about it with someone and they were like, oh, that would be great. And I thought it would be great because she's who we learned to ask all our questions from. I think
100% was
100% was not even going to consider it.
You know, I take it as a win that she listens. If she's listening to us, Mom, if you're there, thanks. Because that's just encouraging unto itself. But that doesn't totally surprise me that she'd say no. You know, like it's a vulnerable thing to be sitting here staring into your eyes.
Well, actually, this part doesn't feel that vulnerable, but later when we
dig into stuff
or when you see it out in the world and know that you've said that.
That's true.
Yeah.
It does bring about reflection.
Yeah.
There's much reflection.
It does.
In a good way. I'd much rather be doing this than not actually, now that we've started. I didn't know. Remember I said that before, that I really didn't know if I'd get into this whole talking to you, but then recording it so that the world can hear my thoughts. But now,
yeah,
I think I'm less concerned about what the world is thinking, because it's not like it's the world. I mean, it's just a few folk who, you know, listen and download or whatever. But like, it's more about that we've now had to arrange our schedules so that we can definitively have like a good hour to talk, which now that like school is back, it's hard, right? So we're like actually in some ways investing in ourselves as a relationship. I mean, in many ways, right?
To force ourselves to be together, to have these conversations.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, I remember when the pandemic had hit last school year and everything had closed, there was that one tiny part of me that was like, okay, well then I'll get to walk with Becca again, because we used
to do these walks.
Yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, we'd walk, but in the second round, we didn't, because our kids were on slightly different school schedules.
Mm-hmm.
So because Violet was like 20 minutes before Frankie would have to come on, we could never find a window. And so I could never walk with you. Like really,
Yeah.
honestly, I think in that lockdown, I saw you less than I had in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, this
Yeah, no,
process
this is
is
a nice
interesting.
intentional rendezvous.
Yeah, it's intentional. I like that.
Yeah. And it's good to get together because I was thinking about the dark thoughts.
Oh boy.
Well, the heavy thoughts that we all have, like sort of on an ongoing, the persistent thoughts
Yeah.
is what because I forget even what happened this week, but I just struck how, I can wake up in the morning, there's an email that is challenging
Mm-hmm.
or worded challenging or whatever it is. And lately, my mind will just say, you're so stupid and so ugly or something like really crazy. Like it's disproportionate to
The thing
disproportional.
that perhaps that maybe triggered the thought.
Yeah, like it's just an email or whatever, but it's just like my mind will go to this heavy negative spot. It's like it's just like flits in this. And what do you think of that?
Well, I guess as you
I mean, it's a bad thought.
yeah, no, that sounds like a bad thought. Like that's like, okay. I'm going in, my big sister hat's popping on here, and I'm going, okay, how are we going to reframe this?
Are you surprised at that thought, or you're like, I've known you long enough?
No, I don't know that it surprises me. I think it makes me sad because I don't want that for you, obviously. But I mean, I had a kid this week just write me a little note about how the whole world is going to end, and he is not surprised by that because all people are horrible. And I mean, he's only 17, so this is how he thinks. This is how he sees the universe. Really low.
Like, and did he want anything from you in that note, or he just needed to share it?
He was just sharing it. So I mean, part of maybe just a process is sharing, right? But it was interesting because as I think of him, and even as I'm hearing you, and you actually started by saying heavy thoughts, it does actually make me think of a book I used to teach called Weight by Jeanette Winterson. And it was a really neat book because it was part of a series where a bunch of different authors, like I think Atwood was asked or whatever, but anyways, a bunch of different authors were asked to come in and take some sort of a Greek myth and then grow it into some new iteration of that text. And so Winterson, British author, I've long enjoyed her work, but she
was the one from our quote.
Yes.
Remember a couple episodes ago? Yeah. The body tells the story.
Yeah. Written on the body. Yeah.
Written on the body.
Right. Yeah. And actually that's the title of one of her books.
Okay.
But so the myth that she took was the myth of Atlas and Heracles. So some people say Hercules, but Heracles in this is the version that she chose to take. And it's about how Atlas is tasked by the gods to hold up the world, right? So the heaviness of this massive task that only he can do. Mm-hmm. And it's only he can do it until he connects with Heracles, who actually is the only other god or half god, demigod, whatever, who's strong enough to bear this burden for him. So like they could potentially share a burden. Mm-hmm. And at one point in the book, I remember very distinctly, because I used to teach this to my students, and I remember really, really distinctly this little image of Heracles swatting away a thought wasp. Mm-hmm. And he called it a thought wasp that he literally tried to swat out of his head. And it was, of course, about him offering any care to Atlas. He didn't want to offer care to Atlas. He didn't want to. He wanted to just do his own thing. He had his own mission and stuff that he wanted to organize, but
he didn't want to be carrying the weight of the world.
Yeah, he really didn't. And he was very aware that what Atlas was bearing was too much. So instead of wanting to be a helper, he wanted to run away from that. So that's interesting, but it's that thought wasp image that's long stuck with me because, I mean, I think of all of us. I mean, when you describe even just looking at an email early in the morning, like many self-care types who I tell you I don't follow, but I've read enough to sort of go, I know that they would say, don't make the first thing you do, check your phone.
Oh, for sure.
Morning,
an email,
right?
Yeah.
All these practices that we know we should do, but the weight of our creative endeavors, the weight of our job. I mean, like, I know that when I open my phone in the morning, I'm going to have 8 emails from school that are not even like, some of them are auto sends just to tell me who are my online kids that day, like things like that. So the weight of the world is just constantly there. So how do we protect ourselves from it? I think one, obviously we can set up our boundaries or whatever, but to really follow through on those is, I'm finding hard. So I really feel with you.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, the thought waspy thing, I think, is real. Like, I really think that
and there's certain
recognize
one.
that.
Yeah, that's such an interesting image.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I ate a bee a couple of weekends ago. It fell in my green juice. And I was talking to my mom and we were having a good chat. And then all of a sudden it was in my mouth. And then you pulled the stinger off my tongue, Nat.
It was actually the craziest moment, because when you came running in from the porch with your mouth wide open and you've just got like your tongue out and you're just like, ah. And all I could see was this thing. There was like literally this object.
You could see it in there?
Yeah, that's how I knew.
How big is a stinger?
Really quite long. Like, it
and
was
just like sitting up in my tongue like a dagger?
Sort of like angled, actually. So it was like about as long as like my pinky fingernail.
Wow.
Like, it was long. So that's why I could quite easily grab it and yank it. And I felt quite happy that I was able to do that for you. And perhaps there was like some satisfaction in removing it, because
there was definitely a satisfaction, because in your other life you were like an esthetician, right?
It's true. There are things I like to do.
Prune
like, I like
us.
to, do people's eyebrows.
And just so you know, Nat is the one that removes all the hair, all the facial hair
in our family. I'm really good with wax. Like, it's a thing.
You really are.
I take some pleasure with the finished
She likes
product.
to rip.
Well, it's the end.
It's the
I
rip.
like the end. I like getting to the end result.
Okay, but I was going to say that was like a thought wasp in my mouth.
There is so much there that I'm not actually ready to
I know.
try and move into some
You could
sort of
make
crazy
links
metaphor.
like nobody's business.
But it is interesting that it literally happened to you. I mean, it was.
Yeah, and maybe that, I don't know. I mean,
seemingly symbolic.
I think it's also true that it seems like thought wasps come in waves, and that there are recurring ones for each of us. Do you think that's true? I mean, I don't, like, I've noticed in, like, Dad has expressed in sermons that he has struggled with negative self-talk. I mean, that's something I have. Is it an Irish thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Irish,
they can go pretty low.
At
least the people we've encountered.
Because I don't feel like negative self-talk is as much of your struggle. Is it? Or I mean you do, or is that just universal, and it's just the quality or the specific line that we say to ourselves is what shifts, but we all.
Yeah, okay. So I'm thinking through that, and I guess my answer would be, I definitely think it's
as real for you as it is for me, and it's just different.
But I think it's different in that maybe I have made a definitive practice to try and swat the wasp away before it takes too deep a hold. And I've also been very able, right? Like, in that my job requires that I have a very specific schedule. I mean, a teacher doesn't really have the freedom, the mental space and freedom to
ruminate.
No, but 100%,
to sit
right?
At your,
like when you, as an artist, you're required to give yourself that space, because how else can you really truly create work? I mean, I was saying yesterday on our walk, right? I was talking about friends, like former colleagues, who literally one had to retire to actually finish her doctoral work because her PhD was not going to get finished while she was teaching full time. Like, it just wasn't going to happen for her. So she literally had to leave the profession to finish her work.
To write.
So to write big thoughts does take space, and teachers aren't given much space. So it's not like I have a ton of space to be sitting in all of my notes.
Examining your thought wasps from every angle.
Yeah, like they might just be in there, but they're kind of like drunk. Like, didn't Clifford say yesterday that all the wasps are moving so slowly because they're drunk on the fruit of the apples or whatever. So like all my thoughts are just kind of like meandering through my head. But you know, I mean, I definitely would say that I like imposter syndrome for me is a real thing in terms of like where I fit with my own writing. I mean, like my writing, I've published lots of things, you know, like I've got
so you should feel like really good. You should
10 or 12 academic journals that I've taken in my stuff over the last, like I should be able to look at my CV and go, good job, Nat. Like you did it for a while and this was good. And it's that piece. It's that for a while, like somehow.
So what is your the line? So, you know, if mine is, I'm stupid and ugly. Like that's like, it feels so actually really embarrassing to say that out loud because it's so
really real.
Kind of pitiful. But I'm just struck by how that pitiful or line will come into my head. So I'm just owning that. But for you, is there a specific line? Like you tried for a while. I tried for a while, and I couldn't make it. Is that what it is?
I think that my pitiful line is no one wants me.
No one wants me.
Because I can't seem to easily, like I do believe that people who are working in the already sort of created boundaries of academic spaces, like they have, I'm jumping a little bit here, but just on LinkedIn, you could see that they have different groups that you can join, right? That's so obvious to so many. But one of the groups is careers for academics outside of academia. Like that's a full group with like 1 million people or something ridiculous. Like it's not like I'm alone in this sort of reality where I went off and did these things. I mean, my school alone, there are 3 people who have PhDs. So I'm not...
And Simon has a PhD,
right?
And he found it. Well, it's just such a challenging field because there's just so few jobs,
right?
Like it's just there's.
So I am not special, and nor am I alone in terms of my. But in my head, somehow I still go down the road of being a bit self-flagellatory and like, you're bad, because like I don't like that kind of, you know, hit myself thing, just because somehow the vision that I had, perhaps naive vision I had for how my process was going to go. I was going to get this degree and then I was going to make a leap from my, at that time, you know, 15 years in the school board to like a new thing. And now I'm 20
and it was
years
going
in the school
to
board, and it's not, and it's still, and it looks different.
It was going to be a clear transition, and this was that life. This is this life.
Yeah, and clear transitions, I don't think I can, again, do that very well looking for somebody else's story. I can look and you can talk to me about what's feeling stressful for you, and I can be like, well, but here's how we can work through that. But when it comes to doing it for myself, I find that harder because the part of me that likes to rip the wax off and make like that little bit of lip hair go away feels the same about my own story. Like I wish it could just be smoother.
Yeah.
Man, I am an esthetician at heart.
It could be smoother. You want those legs smooth.
I want it smooth.
So
that's probably part of it for me.
Yeah.
So it's not really a line though, right? Like beyond, like the way that you've got like a line down that you say in your head. I think that's maybe why I don't feel quite the same as like you, or you've said that you've heard Dad describe like some, like that idea of negative self-talk. I don't think I'm saying those words all the time. I think it's just a feeling. It's a weighty, heavy. That's why that thought wasp thing really resonates for me.
Yeah. Although it's interesting because you're such a good teacher that you could, I don't know, like if you left the profession, just that challenge of what we want to do versus what we're called to do versus what, you know, where we're gifted and but what we want and struggle towards, just all that stuff. Yeah. Because you're so deeply gifted as a teacher. And even our friend Tamara, hey Tam, she's a very faithful listener, so she'll definitely tune in. I mean, she was talking about hearing you in the hallway and entertaining your students and dancing for them and just doing, you know, you bend over backwards to be there for them and it's so it's so beautiful and moving and I think unusual. I mean, we were also talking this weekend about the bad English teachers I've had over the years who were so unengaged and like that's so amazing for your students to have you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely.
Which is really about, I mean, this isn't really going anywhere except to say that, you know, you're there for a reason, I guess. Which, I mean, I don't know how that helps because still, is that a way to counter a thought wasp? I don't know.
I think so.
Although I kind of hate that if you were saying that to me, you're there for a reason.
No.
I mean, does that...
I wouldn't say those words to you.
You would say them so much better.
I'm recognizing my audience. She's not going to like that one.
It's too trite.
That one's not going to work. But I
accept the trite words out of my mouth.
No, stop. But I think I do. I definitely again, I love what I do. I am probably good at what I do because I take energy from those I'm engaging with and they feed back to me. So the feedback loop is quite positive in those moments. But I think that maybe the thought wasp for me that weighs a bit, that buzzes quite insistently, is that I'm good at that, but is this everything? If that makes sense. Like I could be good at lots of things, but to feel constrained to only getting to be good at this thing over here, which is a really important and good thing, does start to buzz about. Yeah,
because you're like, hey world, I
actually have
lots of talents. Yes, I get it. I'm good at this. And I won't stop being good at this but what else can I show you, or what else?
Yeah, and I mean, how many more people could I potentially help if I was in a different situation where I mean, the doer part of me, right? I definitely am a doer, and that is perhaps another thought wasp of mine, if I really analyze the phrase, like that I'm not quite ever doing enough. Like even I said to Clifford last night, I was like, if we could build a bathtub somehow, or if the world could build me a bathtub where I could quite comfortably keep my bad leg out of the water, because I don't love bathtubs because I get too hot. And it's not that my body got hot, it's that my leg is getting hot, which is stupid and annoying. Because if it gets overheated, then that's why it swells, right? Like it's all related to heat, truly.
Can you feel like the heat just enveloping it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so like in a bathtub, it's the worst. But I actually want to take a bath because everybody tells me. I watch all of you guys do these baths and feel so calmed after them. But I literally am like in there already feeling too hot, trying to find a way to like flop my leg over comfortably, but it's against the wall, so I can't. But then I also start like seeing all the things in the bathroom that need to get cleaned. So I can't just sit there and the last time I tried to take a bath, it maybe lasted 5 minutes and I ended up cleaning the bathtub from within the bathtub. Like that's what I actually did. I reached out to the cupboard, got a sponge, and just started, like as if when we used to scrub the scum line at the pool. Like that.
We were lifeguards.
That
was one of our jobs.
And so I just did that. I was like, well, be 16 again and own it. So I guess the doer part of me is another thing that I have to counter, because I'm doing a lot in my day-to-day at school, but I also recognize there are so many other things I could be doing for good, right? Like not just cleaning the bathroom, but like doing for good in terms of young people and access to programs and all the things that mean something in my head that probably not everybody's thinking about, but those thought wasps, that thought wasp can start to, weigh heavy.
Yeah, I get that one, because mine would be more like I get the doing, although I would like the thought wasp that envelops me often is, what progress did I make today? Like just thinking progress, work progress. And that's really, I mean, that's, what's the word? that's the devil for the artistic process, for to be so focused on the progress, because I think, sometimes you do need to ruminate. You do need to just be in a collection phase where you're just gathering ideas. And I think, this rushing to progress, rushing to write pages necessarily, like it might be a moment to sit and struggle. So that's,
which you can recognize because you've done it for so long, but it doesn't mean it feels comfortable.
No, it's definitely not comfortable. And I think it's a battle in my head to be patient. And I think for you, I look at you and I don't think it's done for you. I actually don't think you will be in the teaching profession for the next 15 years. But
I get to retire in 14. Just saying. My number on my paper
is 14.
It's 14.
Okay, so well, I will be interested to see what unfolds for you in these last 14. And I think just be patient, Nat. Hold out. And both of us, I think. Why am I the motivational speaker right now?
I'm taking this. I needed this. It's like,
I think something will. I think you have kind of served that profession, and I think the world is going to serve something back to you, Nat.
She says, No, I need to. So maybe one of my other weighty tasks is to learn to accept the slow statement. Well, not the slow statement. You didn't say that slowly, but the slow reality of what you're saying to me. That is.
I'm reading Miriam Toews' new book, Fight Night.
Oh, I thought
that's
we were
her newest
talking
book.
About her newest. That's one before. Okay.
Yeah, and it's so great. And it's this grandmother. It's really this grandmother and this daughter, granddaughter. There's also a daughter.
Okay.
But the grandmother is Mennonite religious, and she has she's very funny. And she talks about how her and her women prayed for this abusive husband to die. And they prayed for years. And then there's this line about how it took 3 years for that prayer to work, for the husband to die. Of course it said so witty, but that's what I'm thinking. We don't know how long we have to pray for certain things. We do like to pray, everyone.
No, that's
so
true.
So I feel like we've been praying for something to open up for you, just to widen that breadth for you. So, because you need it. You're basically stating you're giving so much to your students, but where's
Natalie in this?
What do you need back? So, but maybe there's just more prayer to be done. Like those, I thought that grandmother it was such a beautiful moment in the book, because all the women were so frustrated, but so dedicated. I think that's that dedication, but frustration, like the persisting on the road, even when you are feeling like falling off the road. I feel like I fall off the road all the time, and you are trying to pull me back on. Keep walking.
Let's keep walking.
That's kind of an image I have of me, like, those like topply guys that you see on the side of the road. I don't know how to describe that in words, but
No, that's really good. Those the ones that are air blown about.
Yeah. And you're like,
with the wind machines.
Get back up. Because really, I think the only way to counter these is, like, what is the way to counter these thought loss? Conversation.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm thinking
reframing for one another, because we can't reframe often for ourselves.
Right. And that student who shared that little, obviously thought wasp of his, the sad one of the world being. Basically.
Okay, just a sec.
But maybe, just think for a second, maybe that him sharing it was not reframing yet, but was starting the process of not being alone with his thoughts. By simply handing that to a teacher. He's now, and at 17, that's a big win if you think about it, because it's not like he had to wait until he was in therapy at 40 to start, right?
Yeah.
So he felt some instinct in his body and listened to it. So maybe some of it is returning to like my 16-year-old lifeguard self and actually listening to my body and saying, okay, what are the things I can do to counter these thoughts? Because it does feel like life has weighed some of this down, which is age and time. And
His weight us down?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there's something youthful about sharing the problem because it's making it new by putting it out in the world. And
yeah, and actually, you know what? Violet came to us last night because we were, of course, practicing the piano. It was really challenging. She had this challenging section. And then at the end, she was crying and she did it. I was so proud of her. She did it. But then at the end, she was frustrated that it wasn't perfect. So I think this idea that you practice a little bit and you just do what you can in that session, and next time you're going to come back. I think that has yet to, I think that's just hard as a child, it's hard as an adult.
Yeah. But something interesting I found in how kids can model for us how to be is, I think I observed, because I was in the other room, so I could hear this happening as you guys were navigating this moment for her. And Frankie had just shared with me like a day before practicing piano, he cried because he was just like, I just put a lot of pressure on myself. I mean, that's a very wise thing to say. And so I think that probably Violet's doing something similar. But what was interesting was I was trying to release you from needing to sort of help her through her moment. And so I went into the bedroom to sort of sit with her for a second. And I recognized that in that moment, she probably didn't actually need me there. Like I was there, so she knows she's loved. But I think she actually just needed to be alone for a sec. And then it was interesting that by the end of the night, as she emerged from whatever were her feelings, she came over and sat on my lap.
And because interesting, she came outside and said, and then Auntie Natalie is trying to help me. And I want to keep, she basically was saying, I want to keep Auntie Natalie in this place. I don't want her trying to help in this way.
Oh, that's amazing. That is so stinking mature.
And I think she wants to keep you in the fun aunt box. That's what because
that's such a happy place for her.
Yeah. And she wasn't saying all that, but she said, and then Auntie Natalie came over and I don't want that, or because I brought you into it in a way. So she was like, I don't want that. And I said to her, great, thank you for using your words. Like, thank you for telling me this. And she felt it was such a victory for her.
That's awesome.
But I'm taking that back to your student because it was a simple, she's sharing something simple. And for her, it's such a victory. Yes. And she has yet to know that the world is going to keep weighing on you. Yeah. And it's going to get harder to just simply share and then recover simply.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm so proud of her, but then, the dark part of myself is like, you don't know how hard it's going to keep being.
Well, but you're not wrong. I mean, like, it is going to be hard. And I mean, as parents, obviously we have to find a way to just support them through that. But that support, and I think this is what's interesting, is I know, because we've created this podcast time, that we want to talk. But what does it also look like to support like a Violet or a Frankie or whoever through their own reframing process? Because we talked about process as like actually truly giving them the space to just sit in the feeling for a minute, which we say we honor, but we want to fix it for them.
I know we do. Because even when she was crying, because I was like,
okay, I think she wanted to be alone.
But I said to her, can we stop that crying? And she said to me through the tears, it was like so perfect. All these things we should apply to our own lives. She was like, why can't I cry? Why? through this, like, I wanted to say, because you're having a tantrum but it was so beautiful and perfect. Why can't I cry? And then it challenged me right there. I was like, yes, you can. You can cry.
But like, yeah, there's something about, maybe she even wanted to cry alone.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's interesting for me to sort of sit with, because I've even learned that with you, right? Like, there are times when you just need to sort of sit in the feeling of whatever frustration has happened at that point, because life is so full of frustrations. But the part of me that wants to fix it for you, with the reframe lesson, kind of like there's me snapping to kind of go, but like those trite lessons don't work for you. So I've had to learn another way, which really I should be applying to me.
Or they can come later. So we have to time our conversations. But I wanted to say, so did your student just come into class and hand you that note?
No, I had
it was scaffolded
as in like I literally kind of created the space for the notes to be given in. So I had said to the students, can you please, just because I have to get to know all of you, I have so many of you, I want to learn your names, but it's better to learn a name with a story. So if you can share with me some sort of story of yourself that you would want me to know, because it's a clean slate, I know nothing about your life. You tell me something about you that then I can then attach to that name. And it was interesting because most of my kids, I would say, shared funny things or like
celebratory things about themselves, or
relatively celebratory, or I used to steal cars in grade 9, but they were always Audis. Like that kind of thing.
And you're like, good choice.
Like, and now are you a good driver? Because that's the part that's most important to me. Are we safe on the road together? So that kind of thing. But then all of a sudden his came in. And it was interesting because I'm a human and I'm a teacher. So, I mean, I don't necessarily have the time to read every nugget in the moment that I receive it. So I don't think I even read his until the next day. But I was grateful that when I read it, he was there. So then I was able to, I didn't refer to the note specifically, but in my interaction with him, I just made a point of carefully kind of, I don't know, just trying to demonstrate care, like, how are we today? Like, what's today look like for us? Like that kind of actually checking in, which I think seemed to be the thing that he was suggesting is missing. Like that if he's feeling alone, then maybe you just want somebody to check in. That's how
which really goes back to your own thought, Wasp, which was, do I matter?
Yeah.
That was yours?
That's probably at the heart of mine.
Does anyone see me?
See, mine is not the line, right? Like that's why
it's the feeling.
It's the feeling. But I probably, that is the feeling. Does my work matter? Do my skills matter? Look.
Does anyone see me?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that was yours. It was something in that vein, but that's beautiful with your student. So basically we should end with a few motivational phrases. Maybe we can replace those either very specific lines like mine or the general feelings, replace it with something else, because we know that Brene Brown from the research says that gratitude counters much.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's how we can counter negative thoughts, blah, blah, blah. And in Miriam Toews' book, her characters, they are talking about, I think the grandma again says that joy is resistance.
That's a great line.
Which I think that actually could make me weep when I say it, because it is resistance and joy, but why then do I resist the joy? I mean, really, this is all enough, right? Family, you and me, hanging out with Violet, chit-chat. It's enough, really. But yet there's all this yearning and striving
for this more that we don't even really know what it means.
Because really, like, you could, what if you were a prof, or even would that be the answer to everything? Right. Like, you would be in this deeply competitive world and you would still have those feelings. You could have gotten what you wanted. And I think that for myself, all the things, when I publish my books, or is that going to be, or is it going to be enough? A showrunner on a bigger show, is that going to be the thing that satisfies me? I think we know that that's not true, right? We know we know we will keep struggling. So that's like the human nature it will never be enough. So how do you find, are you with me? Yeah, I'm going to return to prayer, because I guess I'm thinking like that Anne Lamott line of just like the really, like, I think you're the one that shared it with me when you were like, she just basically writes, God, help me, help me, help me. But then, that's the only prayer she ever needs. That's the only prayer she ever needs. Right? She says it. Yeah. But I think that her follow-up, which is, God, thank you, thank you, thank you, is really key, because the two come together so definitively. Like the idea of gratitude that you just described from Brene Brown. I mean, that as so palpably powerful to help us through is
the key thought wasp that has to buzz about
is thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, wasps and bees are not the same, but the queen bee, the queen bee is the one that like dictates how things go. So we need our biggest line. It's not like the little ones in there.
Yeah.
Don't have some stinging power.
Yeah. And they're real, and they're real things we need to keep confronting, but the queen bee can
sort of pop in there and really dominate the space with thank you. I think that's a good one. We've brought nature full circle.
Nat, because Nat, you love to
sum it up. I like a neat bow at the end, and there's my
It's true. I feel like in all of our conversations, actually, I feel like I can just picture you at my front door, and we've just had some conversation, and maybe no matter how, it's like I can picture you coming back in, just one last thing, just to like tie that up, one last like period.
It's true, but usually that thing,
I can feel like this dissatisfaction in you unless you can just.
I need to wrap it up just a little bit tighter with a little more tape. But I think it's because then the gift I give you is fully wrapped.
It's like beautiful now. The ribbons are.
Now it's like been indigo wrapped.
Thank you.
I love you, Bec.
I love you. Thank you. No, you say it. Thank you. Embody it.
Thank you.
And now her other prayer, help me.
Help me.
And then, thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.